something that I've learned over the past 2 years is trusting yourself, being able to trust yourself and keep your own word. I think that is discipline in essence, is being able to trust yourself to do the things that you say that you do. Can you tell me a little bit about how you've built discipline in your life, especially in the context of college?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, discipline is probably the most important thing in college because your schedules can change like that. And if you always have like some free flowing thing that you know you're going to set your mind to, it will help you succeed, whatever. So something I can give you an example. So when I was talking about earlier in the podcast where I said I was the first one in my chapter to memorize 37 pages of ritual word for word, that took a year and a half to do. And I don't have actually I do have my phone on me, but basically I sent my alumni advisor for my chapter about a year and a half ago. I sent him a text message. I said, Charlie, I am going to be the first person in this fraternity to memorize this. And that was before I memorized anything, just because I trusted myself to put my mind to it. And so over every single day for like the year and a half, almost every single day, I would get a piece of paper out and then I would do paragraph by paragraph. So I'd write out a paragraph of like words, memorize that, walk around my neighborhood at night. I'd make it a habit where at night I would schedule like 20, 30 minutes just to walk every single day, going over my head, speaking it out loud. And then that just builds on to each other. And so the day before I tested for it, I walked around my neighborhood for an hour and a half reciting it because it took me 45 minutes straight to say the whole thing. And so I did that twice. And that thing is glued in my brain. I mean, I haven't done it in like months now, thank goodness. But discipline is just like doing a little bit every day. And it talks about in Atomic Habits, which I know you're kind of starting to read. It's called the 2-minute rule. And basically it's like start doing something that even if you don't want to do it, just do it for 2 minutes. And then you can like put it down, whatever. Like it was talking about an example where it's like someone wanted to build a habit of going to the gym. And they would go to the gym every single day, work out for 2 minutes, and then go home. And then after a week of doing that, they would bump it up to like maybe 10 minutes and then go home. It's just doing the bare minimum where it's feel like, oh, I can do 2 minutes. Doing that over and over and then working up to like an hour workout. And so like, again, an example my professor was talking about, his kid was getting out of shape and he literally just said his kid was fat and in college. And so he's like, oh, let's put you on a program. So go outside every day and run a half a mile, or not half a mile, like maybe 100 meters every single day for like a week. And then he would bump it up to 200 because like anyone can run 100 meters, even if it's walking, anyone can do that. That's easy. And so he would start doing that. And then eventually he'd work up to like mile, 2 mile. It's just those small starting points can build bigger habits is kind of like the best way to describe discipline.
It's the concept of just start. Starting is the hardest part of forming any sort of habit. So I'm just starting to read Atomic Habits now. Atomic Habits just keep coming up for me. It's a book by James Clear. I just subscribed to his newsletter as well. His I think it's 321 or whatever email or something like that. My uncle sent me that, and then I've been recommended to read this book by numerous amounts of people, and I've heard of it, had it in my library for a while, so I'm about to start it. But starting habits is the hardest thing that you can do. So just to start and show up, I think is absolutely massive. That's something that I've used for my work, specifically whether it's working on things for this podcast or for school or for any sort of thing. Getting yourself to just start the task, since starting is the hardest part. If you can get yourself to sit down for like 10 or 15 minutes with your full focus on whatever the task is at hand, if you can make it to that part, like 15, 20 minutes or so, then you should, assuming that you're starting to understand it and whatnot, it's easier for you then to get into a flow state, which is basically the way that I'd feel like the way that I can describe that would be if you're playing baseball, it's like you're completely dialed in and like you're just totally not thinking of anything else. Like you're basically one with like the game of like baseball or whatever, or football or whatever it is, or work, to where if you're writing a paper, you just start, you get yourself to start, and whether that's on like a daily basis if it's a habit, like you're building to go to the gym or to start meditating. I have a good example of that one as well. But for writing an essay, it's just pushing yourself to start with the 10 minutes or so. Once you get like 10 or so minutes in and you're not checking your phone, you're not on Instagram or just talking to people or whatnot, you're just earbuds in or whatnot, solely focus for 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, then you're able to really like get focused and get like dialed in a sense, like super hyper focused into that one task. So then you could get it and run with it and start writing. That's what I would do too. I use that all the time. I try to get into a flow state for whatever the thing is, which is just minimizing distractions and just being ultra focused on one thing. That's what I would do. That's why I became such a great writer of papers throughout high school and into college, because I would just get myself to start the paper, and I wouldn't need to have like a full plan or anything like that. It'd be like a few things, like maybe a couple things I want to touch on, and then tell myself like, just write the introduction. If you can just write the introduction and you have at the end your thesis of like a few points that you're about to start talking about, if you've already done that for like 15 or so minutes and you're completely focused on writing this, I mean, you could probably write the first body paragraph. Why don't I keep writing? Oh, and then next thing you know, you have an entire essay done and you're good. That's why I would always procrastinate for a while, because I knew I could get to that end point like the day before or whatever and just do that and be like, oh, well, I can just keep going and whatnot. And I realized that in college, my first semester sophomore year, whenever I had to write a few papers, I was like, wait, I don't need to be procrastinating this all the way through there. If I just move this up and do the exact same strategy and just start this task, then I will finish it so much faster, and then I have all the time in the world to do whatever I want to because my papers are written. Perfect.
Yeah, no, I was hearing you say that, and I thought of something else. My professor was talking about how habit like building is kind of like the launch of a rocket ship, in the way where in the first few seconds the rocket's not moving, even though like the engines are pushing. That's basically the first week of a habit or something. Like let's say I just started a new habit where I wake up at 5:30 a.m. and go swimming, and for the first like weeks or so, like I'm not seeing any changes in my body, even though I'm doing this. And that's exactly when people stop doing their habits, because they're like, well, I'm not seeing anything. The thing is, when a rocket first takes off, it's obviously, you can see the engines pushing and everything, but it's not going anywhere. It's until like maybe week 2, week 3, week 4, where it starts to take off a little bit and it goes faster and faster and faster. It's the same thing with habits. Like the first few weeks, like week 1, week 2, you're not going to see anything. But if you keep at it and keep doing this habit, you're obviously going to see changes. Just like working out. I know you started like last year or year before. Now you're like the biggest kid in the block. So it's like, you can just see building habits like that in the long run, it helps you so much. It just might not show at the first few weeks.
I've seen, even through myself and working on stuff like this podcast and everything beforehand, and specifically lifting. Lifting is a fantastic example of this and working out. But success tends to be like exponential. So the graph is, in the video I'm showing it, but it's whenever you essentially are straight with like minimal change for like a very long time. And like you said, like the rocket ship, it just sort of shoots up really far. And it's because you get to the point all the way here right before it shoots up, and everyone is unable to see, it's really tough, I guess you could say. It's really tough to be super patient whenever you don't see a lot of results. But if you commit yourself to a habit, I'm going to keep doing this for a long time, and I'm just going to see what happens over time. Eventually, that's whenever you put in enough time and enough effort into something, eventually that's whenever it spikes and pops off. But the biggest thing that I've learned from that is just keep going. Continue. If you can continue, even whenever the jump is, this is really hard, I can only do 1 more minute, or it's really hard for me to get to that next level. Eventually, whenever you've practiced the stuff long enough, you get to a point where it's exponentially increases. And like your example beforehand, the rocket ship that's barely off the ground to start, and then boom, it's all the way up in outer space. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and watch this next video right here.